The kingdom of Invike is struggling. Its people, known as the Hizji, work to live a life free from their immortal oppressors, known simply as the Creators, gods with unfathomable power. Among the Hizji are those with special red brands, marking them as shifters or breeders. Danu is the last breeder, brought up from the lowest caste to become queen, though she was never meant to be. Now she must choose the next king and lead her people as the Creators prepare to make their final move. Her birth was an act of treason, but now she's their last hope. The Last Dragon Princess is the debut novel of Cynthia Payne, a fan of the show who, full disclosure, provided me with a free copy of this book. The book was published in 2018, and while I normally don't discuss the covers of books, I have to say this cover is gorgeous. Great use of color, and it really grabs your attention. Oh, it's so good. But anyway, the book. So the key element in this book is the magic system. Marked Hizji can either be shifters or breeders. Shifters are able to transform into dragons and are able to use magic in that state, whether it be commanding birds to do one's bidding, turning invisible, spitting out sparks, and the old classic, breathing fire. Shifters are a very powerful fighter, but despite their strength, the best they can do is keep the Creators at bay. Breeders are much simpler, in that they give birth to shifters and are responsible for raising children and assisting shifters while off the battlefield. Think of them as the brains of the operation. Making up the citizens of Invike are the 8 different castes, each with certain strengths and weaknesses. The book doesn't go into too much detail with that, aside from the Sparks caste being the lowest of the totem pole. Danu happens to be a Spark, and has since raised to power by her mother illegally drinking a potion to help her give birth to a breeder. The setup is a little convoluted, but it does work in the end. The main character is Danu, last of the breeders, or the Dragon Princess as one of the shifters teases her. As the last breeder, Danu is basically royalty, expected to choose the next king and give birth to the next generation of warriors. However, she refuses to fall in line and takes charge of her own life after uncovering a long-kept secret. She learns to unite the few remaining shifters under her wing and swears that this war against the Creators will somehow end under her rule. Danu is a very likable character, always standing up for what she believes in, despite her soft upbringing. She has a solid character arc through the book, learning that the world is much harder than she ever knew, and she has to contend with the harsh decisions she and the shifters have to make in order to keep the citizens safe. While the idea of picking the new king is an early plot point, it's mostly used to highlight the shifters that Danu is meant to choose from, one at a time. Danu gets to know a diverse cast of characters, like Pan, the ladies' man, Hagen, the strongest fighter, Maru, the waterbender, Zephyrus, the noble, and Garm, often judged poorly because he's a rogue who came from the lowest caste within Invike. There are plenty of other characters, like the overprotective Kalmus, who watches over Danu, or Millie, who serves as her handmaiden. The side characters mostly exist to give Danu information for her to make decisions with, or they exist as potential romantic partners. It does take a while for you to get attached to them, though. For the first half of the book, most of them have only surface-level depth, but they really start to flourish in the second half. They're otherwise utilized well, have enough distinguishing characteristics that you can tell them apart, and you'll find yourself caring about them as they charge into battle or desperately try to defend the civilians from oncoming Creator attacks. Speaking of romance, that's something I feel that this book does better than most YA books like Divergent and The Mortal Instruments. While I'm not a huge fan of romance, I can appreciate a romantic subplot threaded into a story, as long as it's not done out of narrative obligation. When the romance of a book is shoved into your face and even overtakes the actual plot, I find it a bit tedious. What can I say, I'm a heartless monster. That being said, Payne uses the romance sparingly, teasing you with it and never sacrificing plot for the sake of artificial tension. Which one of the cute boys will Danu choose? Who cares? A band of immortal monsters are on the warpath to commit genocide against her people. If you enjoy stories where the romance is a large part of the book, then you might find yourself asking for more. But otherwise, it's left to a light sprinkling, which I can appreciate. The book starts off kinda slow, with a lot of exposition in the first few chapters to get through the cast of characters and to set up the universe. But once the plot gets going, it stays on a steady pace all the way to the back cover. By the end, you'll be flying through the pages to find out what happens next. There's also a good balance between dialogue and prose, so information comes through naturally. I would be remiss if I didn't also mention that there are a few typos. They aren't critical, but they do take you out of the moment, however briefly. One example was where Pain uses lightening when she means to use lightning. But the typos aren't common, and most of them are easy enough to breeze through without even noticing them. Overall, The Last Dragon Princess is pretty good. Not a bad time to be had for sure. Danu makes for an engaging protagonist, the plot has several fun twists in it, the dialogue is very strong, and I found myself diving back into the book whenever I had the chance. I would have given the book a page-turner rating, but I had to dock it a few points for the typos. It's still a lot of fun to read though. You should definitely consider picking this one up. So, have you read the book? What did you think? If not, do you want to read it now? Whatever your thoughts, comment below and stay tuned for more.